Hello everyone, it's Alex again. I have been in Indonesia, that's why you've not had any updates on my blog or my vlog for a while. And I've had a rather interesting, if not incredibly frustrating experience in Indonesia. And I was going to write about it, and there will be a written piece about this to give you the full details, but I thought it's probably easiest for me to do a quick vlog piece just to share with you this story, because I think it's something that I would like to tell. It's a story that needs to be shared. And it is an accident. I had a car accident in Indonesia, and this happened on the road between Borobudur and Yogyakarta. Now, Borobudur is one of the top, most amazing tourist destinations in Indonesia. It's worth visiting, but you should not drive there. Renting a car in Indonesia is probably a very bad idea, even if you are a very good driver. Borobudur and Yogyakarta have their charms. They are pretty places to visit. But I'm about to tell you why you should not rent a car, because something like this could happen to you. Okay? Okay, what I'm about to tell you is the whole story in a nutshell. Obviously, it's not a blow-by-blow account because I could be sitting here for hours giving you every gross detail. Okay? We were driving out from Borobudur, after having visited Borobudur, driving back to Yogyakarta, and there's a short stretch of the road from Borobudur back to where the main highway is between Magelang and Yogyakarta, and it's a very narrow road, what we call a kampong road. It's through the village, one lane up, one lane down, mud on either side, through rice fields and forests. Okay, so there was a bicycle and a couple of mopeds in front, and they stopped. So our car, we had to stop as well. If the people in front stop and you don't stop, you're gonna crash into them, yeah? So when we stopped, we waited 1001, 1002, about 1003 mark. About 3 seconds later, we heard this crash behind us. We went back. Whoa! Okay, we've been hit from behind. Okay, after we have stopped, and obviously, it was scary. It was worrying. So we had to get out of the car and see if the people behind were okay, and obviously to see what kind of damage there was to our rental car after an impact like that. We were scared, we were worried, but we just knew we had to do the right thing. And I was thrown in the deep end because I was the only one who spoke any Bahasa. And maybe, you thought it was the right thing, we thought it was the right thing to do, but in hindsight, this is what happened next. Now, the people who crashed into us were two young teenage girls, about 15, 16-year-olds, on a moped. Now, mopeds are very, very common in Indonesia because they're an efficient way for people to get around vast tracts of rural areas in the countryside. And they picked up their mopeds. They seemed to be fine. And I asked them, if they were okay, obviously in Bahasa. And now they claimed at first that the motor was rosak. That there was their motorcycle had broken down. The moped had an engine problem as a result of the accident. And then suddenly one of them started kaki saya sakit, and then she claimed suddenly out of the blue that her leg was injured. I was like, okay, that's bizarre, because before you realize that who I was, your leg wasn't injured. And that's where, in the very essence, we say in Singlish, this is wayang. Wayang is what we say in Singapore when you pretend, you make a show like, kaki saya sakit. I was like, oh, come on, bitch. Your leg was fine a moment ago. And like, for fuck's sake. Anyway, so what then happened was we tried to reason with them that now the basic premise was that we had stopped because the people in front had stopped. So if they hit us, they were the ones who were in the wrong. And if we had hit someone, then obviously we're the ones in the wrong. But we had done nothing wrong because the people in front had stopped. So if we hadn't stopped, we would have hit the people in front. So those two dozy teenagers were obviously not paying attention and not braking in time. That's why they crashed. I mean, I think they did try to brake, but too late. And we did inspect the back of our rental car, and it seemed like maybe there were a few scratches, but it wasn't like there was a huge dent. So we think that they tried to brake, and they braked too late and they fell off. And maybe they fell onto the car, and that's why the car got away relatively unscathed. But from there, to try to explain to them, jikalau kami langgar awak ke, kami ada salah, tetapi yang awak langgi kami, so kami tiada salah. Okay, yang awak salah. It's trying to tell them you're the one in the wrong. You hit us, we didn't hit you, so you're in the wrong. Do you get it? Awak mengerti, awak faham? It's like, nope, you're in our country, money, kompensasi, money. That's all they were worrying about. They didn't have that much English, and with a few words of English, it was just compensation and money, and they were just, there was no reasoning with them. We tried. I tried. Yeah. I was naive. And that was me thinking I could reason with a couple of teenagers and put on like my teacher hat and speak to them like, look here, this is what happened and you were in the wrong. And then the crowd grew. It started with maybe about 3 or 4 people, and then it grew to 10, it grew to 20, and then the next thing I know, like half the fucking kampong came out. Okay, it was like the greatest show in town. There were 2 foreigners trying to argue with these people, and various people started. At first we were told to stay behind because one of them said, okay, they were going to call someone who speaks better English to try to help translate, because I speak Bahasa Melayu, I speak Malay. It's mutually understandable with Indonesian, but where we were near Borobudur and Yogyakarta, the local accent was very hard to understand. And Bahasa Indonesia, I think they could understand my Malay well, but I struggle at times to understand their Indonesian. So at the pretense of trying to get someone to try to help translate, we stayed behind, and nobody who came could speak any English, or barely more than a few words of English, apart from like money. That's the word they know. Money. They want money. They want compensation. And then a few rather menacing looking young men came around, and one of them came to stand right next to me, like, here's me, yeah, and that's his face next to me. And he was like smiling like, I'm big and tough. Like, hi, you're in my village. You're on my turf. What are you gonna do about it? And I was focusing so much on trying to get the words out in Malay and Indonesian, I didn't even have time to get scared. I was just focusing so much on like, what's the word for, whatever in Malay. It was at that point where that rather menacing young man was like standing next to me like that. They're like, his face was right here. His big ugly Indonesian fucking face was right here. That I just realized like, look, it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's about getting out of here in one piece before I get beaten up by this Indonesian lynch mob. You're on their turf, you're on their kampong. Just like, let's just get the fuck out of here before anything, like, we get beaten up, get killed or something, and get buried in a fucking rice field in some disgusting Indonesian little kampong. So we started bargaining. Okay, they asked for 300,000 rupiahs, and the price went up, it got into like one of those bargaining things at the market, and I was like, sangat mahal, saya tiada 300, I was like, it's too much, I don't have 300,000, saya tiada 300,000 rupiah, I was like, I don't have, and I did, and I claim I didn't have that much. And then we settled eventually, bazaar marketing style, for 100,000 rupiahs as compensation. So that works out to be around the 12.50 Sing dollars, or about £7 sterling. And there was someone who was a bit older who told me, like, bisa, okay, fine, that'll do. And he told me to shake hands with the young girl the young teenage girl who fell off the bike, and we shook hands. I gave her the money, and I just made it so I'm going to give the money to her, not to anyone else, just directly to her, and then that'll be it. And we shook hands. We were allowed to go on our way, and I just, well, and even as we drove away, I just kept, like, turning around, expecting them to like still follow us for some more money, or like try to like drag me out of the can and beat the crap out of me. And I wasn't sure until we were like halfway on, into Yogyakarta before I actually started to like breathe, could think again. Because the fact is, Lim Pei took on half that kampong. I swore, half that fucking kampong came out. And the bizarre thing was I wasn't scared. I was just focusing so hard on trying to speak Bahasa that I didn't get time to get scared. And when I lived to tell and I told my Singaporean friends about it, they said that, what the hell were you thinking? Okay, firstly, you speak Bahasa Melayu, that's Malay. It's not Indonesian. Indonesians really dislike Malaysians and people who speak Malay. Secondly, you're from Singapore. They fucking hate Singaporeans. They really hate Singaporeans. And thirdly, on top of that, you're not even Malay Singaporean, you're Chinese Singaporeans. You are Orang Tionghoa. They fucking hate your guts. They had these race riots like not 10 years ago where they massacred tens of thousands, like so many Chinese people in Indonesia for race riots, and that was like 10 years ago or so. And you think you can go in there because you speak Bahasa Melayu and think you can charm them and negotiate and reason with them. My Singaporean friends were like, Alex, what the fuck were you thinking? And I suppose in hindsight, for over 12 Sing dollars, about 7 pounds sterling or so, that was a tiny price to pay to get away in one piece and not get lynched and not get my neck sliced for in that little village and get buried in a rice field. And also for us to have resolved it on the spot and got away without the police getting involved, because for 100,000 that was a tiny price to pay, because we then, by the time we got to Bali, we were then actually had interaction with the real Indonesian police, who were as corrupt as fuck. The fucking Indonesian police are fucking corrupt, disgusting, scum. And the fines, kami kena tenda because we were foreigners driving a rental car. The fines were a lot more, in like 250, and then there was this 400,000. So in hindsight, just that accident alone, it was a tiny price to pay. It was a small price to pay. It was worth it to get away one piece and not have the police involved, because the police were just going to be like so much more corrupt, and you end up still paying the compensation, paying more, and then paying something to the police because they got involved. So in hindsight, we actually did the right thing. And perhaps it had not been for the fact that I do speak Malay and I was able to argue with them, and I was not scared, and I was quite obstinate in my negotiations. We might have ended up paying a lot more if they thought we were some foreigners who were good to bully, who were afraid of them, but instead they got me, who was for some reason not afraid. So that's it for me from this week. I know I'm sorry I said I was going to do it in a nutshell. I could have given you so much more details, a blow-by-blow account about what happened after that accident, but there will be a blog post where I will write about it in far more details and share with you tips about traveling through Indonesia if you're trying to do it as an independent traveler rather than join a guided tour or engage a local tour guide who is going to translate everything for you. Look out for that post on my blog soon when I do have the time to do it. And so if you have any other thoughts about traveling in Indonesia, maybe you have encountered similar problems traveling in Indonesia, maybe you think that my evaluation is somewhat biased, or if I'm being unfair to Indonesians, or if you have encountered other horror stories about traveling in Indonesia, do leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'm just trying to share my story about what happened, what I went through with other travelers who may be going to Indonesia, who may be thinking about traveling independently around Indonesia, or even, dare I say, get a rental car in Indonesia. Be very, very careful. Feel free to contact me. And I'm not trying, this is not meant to be an attack on Indonesians per se. I'm just relating what happened to me whilst I was traveling in Indonesia, giving you a very honest account. And so yeah, leave a comment below, let me know what you think. Thanks for now. I'm going to be in Singapore for the next couple of days before I fly back to London, so maybe I'll get the blog post up again before I get out of Singapore. Alright, cheers!